Hey everybody, let's talk about the basics of drawing curves with the pen tool in Illustrator. There are a few tricks that make it easier, a few keyboard combinations that you need to remember to make it really work. So let's use this little file here with this grid to kind of practice what we want to do. So when operating the pen tool, you always want to remember that with one hand you're going to be using your mouse, clicking with the pen tool, and the other, I like to keep my left hand on the keyboard right next to my command key, my option key, and my shift key. It's almost become second nature because I'm so used to it, but get in the habit of getting ready with those fingers on the keyboard because they're going to manipulate what your pen tool does. So here's an example of what we're going to do. On this little demo file here, what I've got is the pen tool active. And in the middle of this grid, what I'm going to do is I'm going to position an anchor point right here on this little corner. But I'm not going to let go of the point. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. So what happens is I click, I don't let go of the mouse, and I drag upward with my cursor. Now, while I'm doing that, I'm dragging and holding the mouse. I'm going to press Shift. And see what Shift does? It constrains the angle of that anchor point so that it lifts directly upward. And I'm going to move that handlebar until it lines up with the top line. I'm still holding the mouse and the Shift key, and I'm going to let go of the mouse first. Then let go of Shift. So now what I've done is I've turned that curve so that it aims upward. I've directed that curve. Now it's going to go upward. So notice how the little rubber band effect connects and predicts where the line's going to go next. I'm not clicking anything. I'm just moving my mouse. So I deliberately want to come over here to the second position and then click and drag downward, again, not letting go of the mouse, holding Shift and dragging downward. So when drawing with the pen tool, what you get naturally is a reflected curve. You drag one direction and then you flip to the other and you drag the other direction. And that's how this curve is going to move down the page. Just clicking, dragging, holding Shift. And each time I do that, I go the opposite direction and click and drag upward and downward, or downward and upward. And so what I'm trying to do is just create this little symmetrical line. And that's what the pen tool is going to do all day long. It's going to do a symmetrical curve, and it's going to flip back and forth depending on where you curve and pull that line. And it'll go on like that way forever. So the next question is, well, how do I stop? How do I stop the line? You know, obviously, if I'm drawing an object, I would go all the way back to the beginning and I would click the first point to close it. But I just want to have this open-ended line, just a line by itself I want to let go. Simple, just click Escape on your keyboard and it lets go of the pen, and you can proceed to drawing somewhere else. Now, this curve can be manipulated. If I came back in with my direct selection arrow and I pressed the white arrow or A on my keyboard, I could grab those anchor points. I could reposition them as needed, twist, or change direction of those handlebars, and I can further manipulate that curve. And that's something to pay attention to. A lot of times I tell students that you don't have to draw it perfect the first time. A lot of times, if you get it in the ballpark, then what you do is you go back in and you tune it up and you fix it up. You clean it up. So like maybe it's better to just follow through and draw the line a little bit wrong and then go back in with your direct selection arrow and fix it. Sometimes that's part of the process, that we get a little OCD and we want to make the line perfect from the beginning, but we don't actually have to do that. We can go back and fix it. We can fix just about anything in Illustrator, which is really awesome. Okay, now let's try something that goes against the grain a little bit. Let's try drawing a bouncy line instead of an oscillating line. So I'm going to go to my pen tool, same thing as before. This time I'm going to start over here on the left-hand side, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag upward, holding Shift. And then I'm going to get to the second one and do the same thing, click and drag down. And then I'm going to let go. Now, here's what I want to do. Before I proceed to the next position, I'm actually going to press the Alt key or the Option key on my keyboard. And I'm going to grab the bottom handlebar and reposition it before I draw the next anchor point. Let go. Now notice how the direction of that secondary line changes. So I basically broke the handlebar in half. By default, the handlebars reflect in opposite directions. In this case, I broke it and I bent the bottom handlebar upward to redirect the curve so it goes upward. So again, I drag downward, can hold Shift to make it perpendicular, let go of my mouse, let go of Shift, then I press Option or Alt on my keyboard, grab that little blue circle, that little blue dial on the handlebar, and I move it up. Then I let go of everything and I can proceed to draw with the curve and make it a bouncy line. Now every once in a while, you might by accident let go of the line, and then when you try to reconnect, you get a stubby curve. Because whenever you deselect or disconnect the anchor point or the line, by default that handlebar, that second handlebar disappears. And so I don't have that second handlebar pointing upward to bend that curve on the left-hand side. So if you ever find yourself in a position where you have to reconnect, the other thing you can do is press Option, go back to that ending anchor point, and notice how the pen tool has a little anchor symbol on it. That means you can draw a new handlebar. So I can drag out, while pressing Option and Alt, a new handlebar before proceeding. So sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you need to reconnect. You got to add a handlebar where there isn't one. Just use that Option and Alt key and reposition it. And then you can make that bouncy line. Now notice if I don't even get this perfect, I'm going to draw it a little bit wrong. And I'm getting to the end. Notice how by the end it got a little disconnected. Well, if I want to fix that, hotkey is the A, switches to the direct selection tool. And notice how what I have to do is click the anchor point to reveal the handlebar. Sometimes you'll notice these other curves, the handlebars are missing and I don't have any to grab. Well, you always have to hit that anchor point first, and it has to be using the direct selection arrow. Then I can reveal the handlebar and reposition it to where it needs to go and make those connections. Click first, move the handlebar, go back, fix, repeat. All right, so those are some of the basics of learning to operate the pen tool, and it gets easier with practice. Just remember, it's all about the timing. Sometimes people get tripped up because they click with the mouse and then they hold Shift, but they let go of Shift before they let go of the mouse, and then the line goes wonky on them. Or sometimes they're pressing it and they use Option, but they click in the wrong spot and they disconnect their line and they can't go back to connecting. So you have to make sure that you keep that handlebar drawn, that pen tool pressed down using Option and Shift while you're still holding onto the mouse. Makes it easy to redirect, reposition, change momentum on your line. And again, as always, you can go with your direct selection tool, the A on your keyboard, and fix it and move it. Another thing that's helpful while you're drawing is the space bar. That gives you the hand tool temporarily, so you can move your page around and then continue drawing, and it doesn't let go of your line. So there are a couple little tricks like that. Last trick, before I forget, is while you're drawing with the pen tool, when you temporarily press Command or Control on your keyboard, your tool will change to the direct selection arrow, and then you can keep drawing. So sometimes while you're going, you just press that little key, move, then keep going. Option, change direction, move it. Command, move it. Direction, change it, keep going. So handy little shortcuts, those little tips will make your drawing go easier. But again, it just takes practice and getting them in the right order. All right, so hope that helps. See you next time, guys.